Finally, the Democrats are calling for investigations into Donald Trump's health in the House of Representatives. You have Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries recently giving an interview with Aaron Parnas here on the MeidasTouch network. And from the Parnas perspective, Aaron does some great work. And Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries says, for sure, if Democrats take control of the House in 2026, they will be doing investigations into Donald Trump's deteriorating health, why Donald Trump keeps lying about his MRI results, and now he's saying there's CT scans, and Donald Trump's overall declining physical and mental condition, and whether or not Donald Trump's capable really even to function as the executive, and whether the 25th Amendment should be invoked. Obviously, Trump's cabinet is too cowardly to ever do that. But to his credit, Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries says right now, right here, at this moment, he wants to call for investigations into Donald Trump's health. Look, James Comer, who leads the House Oversight Committee, and Jim Jordan, the House Judiciary, and some of these other leaders, they're too cowardly. They're going to block this at every step. But Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries is calling for it. Here's what he told Aaron Parnas on Friday. Let's play this clip right here.
Congress, in its role as a separate and co-equal branch of government, should make sure that the administration comes clean as it relates to the president's ability to continue to do the job at the level that the American people deserve.
Now, this follows Donald Trump's deranged interview with the Wall Street Journal, where Donald Trump says that he's not falling asleep at the meetings, where we see him falling asleep all the time. Donald Trump says that it's the blink. He says he's just being caught blinking. Donald Trump also said that his doctor and Trump, they were both lying when they said, he didn't say it in this exact way, but when he said that there were MRI results that showed that he had a perfect MRI, he now claims he didn't get an MRI. He got a CT scan, he said. So CT scans take 45 seconds, MRIs take 45 minutes. It's deeply concerning that Trump and his physician would not know the difference between a MRI and a CT scan, but they just lie about everything. Donald Trump also says that he gets whacked. He says he gets whacked on the hand, and that's why his hand is discolored and has all these bandages, because he keeps getting whacked, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. And then Donald Trump says that he takes 325 or 350 milligrams of aspirin every day because he wants thin blood, not that thick blood. Whatever the hell he's talking about there. Let me just show you. The Washington Post did a good job at one of Donald Trump's recent cabinet meetings where you'll see him sleeping. Donald Trump claims he's not sleeping here. You could judge for yourself. Here, play this clip.
Japan and Korea, they offer us $750 billion in cash to build in America.
Over a fence line dispute that had been in their family for 130 years. We fixed that. The Henry family in New Jersey.
Investments, and we're seeing more and more of that, where we also rescinded the supplemental statement that discouraged the fiduciaries.
California, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maryland, I could go on. What happened in those states?
Well, many of whom were let in across our borders under the previous administration. We are focused on these tasks and this imperative for the American people, and just appreciate your leadership, Mr. President.
Key Supreme Court decisions like Loper-Bright overturned the Chevron doctrine. We inherited massive backlogs.
And that means that American patients at the point of care will be able to get an answer immediately.
And here is Donald Trump saying that he got an MRI and that it was a perfect MRI, but now he's telling the Wall Street Journal he didn't get an MRI. So here was Donald Trump about a month ago, where in the matter of 53 seconds, he says the word MRI 4 times. MRI, 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 MRI. Here, you could watch for yourself.
Because it's part of my physical. Getting an MRI is very standard. Well, you think I shouldn't have it? Other people get them. I had an MRI. Here's what the story is. I had an MRI. The doctor said it was the best result he has ever seen as a doctor. That's it. But I had an MRI as part of my standard yearly, or I think they do it every 2 years, but I have the physical every year. And the result was outstanding. Did you know? I have no idea what they analyzed, but whatever they analyzed it well. and they said that I had as good a result as they've ever seen.
Now, we have Midas Health here under the MeidasTouch network. It's a subsidiary led by Dr. Vin Gupta, who does an incredible job. Shout out to Midas Health and everybody at the Midas Health team. Now, Dr. Gupta spoke with me about Donald Trump's deteriorating health condition, and I think Dr. Gupta would likely be a key witness at these hearings regarding Donald Trump's deteriorating health. Here's what Dr. Gupta told me. Here, play this clip.
One, it never made sense that they released the results of an MRI of your torso, arguing in the doctor's letter on December the 1st that somehow this is something you do for long-term prevention or health prevention as you age. That's not true. Yes, there's this fad of MRIs full body for those that can afford it. Fine. Let's just leave that aside. Nobody gets an MRI just of the torso. And so when you and I had this conversation for our listeners, the question was, are they just releasing the abdominal and cardiac findings and somehow hiding other findings like what's happening in the brain, for example? Just didn't make sense. So now they're saying it's the CT, a CAT scan of his heart and maybe of his abdomen. Again, why are they getting this? As we age, sometimes we get a CT of your coronary arteries, coronary calcium scan, which he actually had in 2018, according to his prior doc, Ronnie Jackson. And at the time in 2018, there was some evidence of calcifications in his coronary arteries, which is not abnormal as we age. Pretty much happens to all of us. Now suddenly it's completely normal. That doesn't make a lot of sense. One. Two, his doctors are right to tell him that he shouldn't be using aspirin 325 milligrams every day. They're correct. It should be a baby aspirin every day if this is for prevention of, say, a stroke or a heart attack. And so the fact that he's doing 325, there's no medical justification for that. There's really very few indications for 325 of aspirin long term. There are some childhood indications, some short-term indications for it in an adult, say, that might have had a heart attack or a cardiac procedure. You get 325 maybe for a few days at most, if not just a one-time dose, and then quickly start 81. And yes, it can cause bruising. It absolutely can cause skin bruising, 325 of aspirin. But this notion that it causes some of these other potential sort of bleeding of the skin when Pam Bondi gave him a handshake, that feels a little speculative and a little unclear. I'll lastly say, so there's the issue with his imaging. How could they possibly confuse or mix up CT, MRI? And I look directly at his physician when I say that. That is not something any personal physician should be confusing or misinforming the public on, especially when it comes to the president's health. This aspirin issue doesn't make a lot of sense. And his doctors are right on that to call him out.
And here's another clip of what Dr. Gupta recently told me. Let's play it.
This constant passing of the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test, MoCA. And just for everybody out there, this is not a test. This is a screening tool for mild cognitive impairment. Say, if you're having memory issues, just sort of linear thought is difficult, you're not able to kind of put basic thoughts together as we age. This is something that we utilize in medicine all the time for basic screening of mild cognitive impairment, mild dementia, in other words. He keeps talking about that. And I think in doing so, he's confusing the public, because this is not a tool that the general public should be utilizing with that level of frequency, unless there's a reason to do it, which is, in other words, to assess and monitor the evolution of mild dementia or mild cognitive impairment. If that's what he's been diagnosed with, then sure, that's an indication to do these serial tests. Absolutely. But if he's not been diagnosed with that, or if they're trying to, again, it's hard to know now what they're being transparent on, since they're fundamentally walking back CT, MRI, these findings. Hard to trust anything now from his personal physician. But especially now, the question is, why does he keep citing this cognitive tool and the results from it? I suspect he's doing it despite his doctor's best advice. And this is where I'll get his doctors and his medical teams back here, is I'm sure many of them are saying, don't talk about this, or this is not something that we're actually saying we want to administer with this level of frequency. Perhaps this is him just doing what he thinks is best. But it's not, again, the flex that he thinks it is. Passing this assessment proves nothing. It proves nothing. And if anything, it raises more questions.
Now, here's the longer clip right here of Hakeem Jeffries demanding a congressional investigation into Donald Trump's deteriorating health. Here, play this clip right here.
Well, to that end, James Comer had this investigation into the Biden auto pen, into Biden's cognitive abilities. Is this an investigation you all can pursue potentially next year into President Trump's health?
Well, I think it's something that James Comer needs to answer for. Listen, at the end of the day, he spent all of this time obsessed. He's still obsessed with Joe Biden, right? Meanwhile, the president has failed to deliver on every single promise that he made to make life more affordable. Seems to be checked out as it relates to, the day-to-day engaging in the people's business. And yet we hear nothing but crickets from James Comer. So I think that Robert Garcia and the oversight Democrats have done a very good job, particularly as it relates to the Epstein files, of pushing the Comer committee to actually be forced into doing the right thing. And so I don't believe that this is something that should wait until the American people give Democrats the majority in the aftermath of the November election later on this year. I think that it's something that James Comer, if he's actually being honest about Congress being a separate and co-equal branch of government, we don't work for Donald Trump. We don't work for J.D. Vance. We don't work for their billionaire donors. We work for the American people. And Congress, in its role as a separate and co-equal branch of government, should make sure that the administration comes clean as it relates to the president's ability to continue to do the job at the level that the American people deserve.
Now, finally, all the Donald Trump propagandists are out and about. You got this guy, Dr. Siegel, on state regime media, which calls itself Fox. And here, Dr. Siegel says, this is all perfectly normal, 325 milligrams of aspirin. And Donald Trump plays a lot of golf. That's clearly why his hands look the way it does. And he's lying, but he could play this clip.
Negative CAT scan, fine. He says he's on 325 milligrams of aspirin. Brian, that increases your risks of bruising, especially at 79 years old. As does playing golf, by the way, because the golfing, actually a lot of sun exposure on his upper extremities. This is completely normal.
And then Dr. Siegel says, Donald Trump is so incredible in all of these press conferences. That's even better than these cognitive exams. Here, play this clip right here.
What a bunch of hogwash to say that this is some kind of things being hidden. He's doing the opposite. He's showing us complete transparency here. You want the cognitive test, but how about watching him on one of these press conferences where you and I can't even get on the air because he keeps talking in ways that are easy to follow. His brain is clearly intact and his body too.
I mean, just utterly outrageous. I'll show you here. This is Donald Trump's nephew, Fred Trump III. Here's what he has to say. Here, play this clip.
You wrote about Donald's father, your grandfather, having dementia the last years of his life.
Yeah.
And that, do you see anything, I'm not asking you to be a doctor, do you see anything in Donald now that reminds you of the grandfather during the times of dementia?
Donald said, my father was tip-top until the end. I can assure you that was not the case. Much like, his making noise about crowd size again. I was on a cable station on Thursday night. I said, guess what? I was sitting 2 rows behind him at the inauguration. I know what I saw.
Right.
I know what I saw in my grandfather. I know what I saw in Donald's older sister, my Aunt Marianne, who in the end, thank you for saying, I am not a doctor. I don't pretend to. I know the warning signs from both of my grandfathers, what it is. Donald's cousin, John Walters, had dementia. It runs in the family. I'm not happy about it because guess what? I worry about it myself. Where's my glasses? Oh, on the top of my head now. I don't know. That may be Alzheimer's, but it runs in the family. He looks older, and I get it. I mean, I'm not saying anybody who is in that office looks different than when they come out. But the things he's spewing and the craziness, and he just can't stick to a message. And he used to be able to stick to a message.
Yeah, well, there you have it, folks. I'll let you judge for yourself, but we need these congressional investigations into Donald Trump's deteriorating health. Shout out to Dr. Gupta for his interview with me on Friday. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Please hit subscribe. We appreciate you so much. New Meidas merch. Head to store.MeidasTouch.com today and get yourself the best pro-democracy gear and show your support. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.